Hi, my name is Susie and I am the owner of the Speckled Loon. Welcome to my channel. If you are one of my loyal subscribers, thank you so much for tuning back in. I certainly do appreciate you checking out my video. If you are new and found me on YouTube, thank you for joining me. If you'd consider subscribing to my channel, that would help me out a lot. And also anyone watching this video, if you can give it a thumbs up, that's going to push it out to more people that would find this helpful or entertaining. So the Speckled Loon is known for bringing you inspired decor for your home, cabin, and so much more. And every month we bring you a DIY decor kit. This month is no exception. July 2022's theme is the Watermelon DIY decor kit, and this one is adorable. I just love the colors of watermelon, the light and dark greens, these shades of pink and red, and a little touch of black. Just really screams summer to me. And I had so much fun putting this kit together. Now this kit is limited in quantity, so if you want it, the link to purchase it is down below. If you take that link and you don't see this kit, it means it's sold out, but there's probably other kits for you to check out, and each one would have a YouTube video with them as well. So hopefully you'll find this helpful, entertaining, and let's get started making our watermelon DIY decor kit. Let's go over what's included in your kit. First of all, I do not send paint and glue along. I feel if you're a crafter, you've got that already, but everything arrives in this nice neat little box. You can use the box later for storage. You've got your instructions, and each project is individually wrapped in these bags to keep all the pieces and parts together. If you notice that you're missing anything, my email is in the description box below, and I will just get any missing piece or part out to you. But you will get the garland and the garland tag, the truck sign, the little tag banner, that is your bow kit, the round gnome sign, the little box sign, and your kit will come to you via UPS or USPS, depending upon where you live. To go over some of the supplies you're going to need to complete your kit. You're of course going to need some paints. You can use the little acrylic 2-ounce bottles you get for 54 cents at Walmart, the Apple Barrel brand. That's fine. I prefer to use chalk paint. You're going to need a light green and a dark green, or just mix some white with the dark green to make light green. I use chalk paint from Walmart called Waverly brand. You're also going to need a black and a white, and you're going to need a shade of red and possibly pink, or you can mix white with your red to use pink. This is a Folk Art brand or this Waverly brand. Either one is fine. The chalk paint is just a little thicker, and they do have these little 2-ounce bottles at Walmart for $1.67. So you don't have to invest in a lot of paint. That's more than enough to do this kit. You can put it on with paint, little makeup sponges or sponge brushes. And then I use a brown and a stencil brush to do some distressing techniques. Paint markers are your friend in this project. There's a lot of little pieces. They work best for them. You're going to need a couple shades of pink and a red paint marker, and then a dark and a light green paint marker as well. If you have a dark green Sharpie, that's going to work for some of the pieces as well. So if you have that on hand, you can just use that. You're going to need some painter's tape, baby wipes, and a paper plate. I use that paper plate for mixing paint. And you're going to need some glue. I prefer this Star Bond glue. It's a super glue. But you can go out and get this gel super glue at the Dollar Tree and put it on with a toothpick in the teeny areas, and that's going to work just fine. I like these little clamps for setting the glue, and I like Q-tips for mixing the paint and for cleanup. I forgot to mention this in the kit part earlier, but each kit is going to come with a small pack of bonus decor. This month it's just a bunch of extra seed shapes in various sizes that you can take your black paint marker and paint with. I just stick mine onto some upside down painter's tape that I have attached to this plate. I take up my black marker and color all over them, and then you can use these as embellishments wherever you see fit. Our next project is the Loony Bow. Some people call it a messy bow or a scrappy bow, but they all kind of have the same. I just call it the Loony Bow because we are the Speckled Loon. So I figured I would put my own twist on it and show you this fun little project. So you are going to get a pack of ribbon, and everybody's ribbon is going to be similar but not exactly the same. So you might not have all the same colors in here, but you will have at least one strip of that watermelon ribbon and that checked ant ribbon, and then various shades of pink, peach, and green. You are going to have a twist tie and a zip tie, and then a little watermelon seed for you to color with your black paint pen, just like we did in the bonus decor section. And here's an up close picture of that seed, and that is going to be your embellishment in the middle. I use Arteza paint pens, but any black paint pen is going to do. You're just going to take the lid off and write over it like you're coloring it with a marker. So you are going to take your ribbon and just set that aside for a minute, and then we are going to also, just FYI, use this green piece as your base, just so you know. Anyway, you are going to take your zip tie, the long plastic tie, and put that twist tie or that bread tie over the top of it so they look like a cross, north and south on the zip tie, east and west on the twist tie. Then you're going to take your ribbon and start layering it. Any order is fine, but you want to do that big piece of green burlap at the back. And you're just going to layer it in any order. I like to do a green, a peach, whatever, and go on that way. But it's up to you. Then you're going to take and you're going to fold it in half and a half again. Kind of like a bow tie where it's in the half and then the top and the bottom meet that middle bulge. And you're going to lay that on top of your tie going east and west. Then you're going to take that zip tie and you're going to pull it really tight. And then you want to maneuver it so that the little bump where it feeds through is in the back. And you won't be seeing that. And you just want to maneuver that bump so it's super tight. So I'm just pulling here and pulling and pulling, because that's going to give you the easier way to fluff it out when it's done. And you can see your bread tie in there still down in that crease, and that's perfect. So I am going to take a wire cutter. You can use an old piece of scissors or old pair of scissors, excuse me, if you want. But the wire cutter, I pull it tight and then snip it off. I think it flew about 10 feet when I snipped it. And then I'm just taking my ribbon, each end, and I'm pulling them all in opposite and different directions. Pulling as hard as I can. And when I pull the ones in the front, they actually cover up that plastic tie, and then that little seed embellishment is going to go on top and hide it as well. Now I like to go ahead and snip off. You usually get some frayed ends, so I do some bird beaks by folding it in half and then cutting upward. You can also do a slant cut. If you have frayed edges, I would suggest that you get those off. You don't have to cut your ribbon though, just get the fray off. But I like the mix of the bird's beak and the slant. So I am doing that here. And just a very little bit, because this is kind of a little bow, it's not huge. And you just keep pulling and shaping until you get it in the configuration that you want. And some of the ribbon is wired, so you can kind of pose it. Other pieces of the ribbon are not wired. So I'm just continuing to fuss with it, and then I want to figure out how I want to place my seed in the middle. Now to do that, you can use any type of glue you want. You can use super glue, you can use fabric glue, you can use E6000. Whatever you've got on hand, you're just going to want to put some on there and then let it set real well. And what I'm going to do is put it on and use those little clamps out of my toolkit. You can use clothespins if you don't have clamps. But that's what it looks like in the end. And that is your Loony Bow. It comes with that little tie, and you can attach it to your tier tray or to any sign in the kit as well. And I will be showing you that on an upcoming project. I hope you like your Loony Bow. Our project we are going to be doing now is our Sweet Summer Watermelon box sign. And I'm going to be showing you a bunch of different techniques on this cute little sign. It's a box sign with a twine hanger and a sawtooth hanger on the back, so you can hang it. And then you can also take that little bow that we just made in the previous project and attach it to that twine hanger if you would like. So we are going to go over several techniques on painting here, and then they're going to be repeated on all the other projects, and I won't go into such detail on the other projects. So if you're going to watch any video, watch this one so you can see how we paint. So you get your box sign, your Sweet Summer, the watermelon piece, the little seeds that pop out, and then the rind. So it's really easy to paint and keep neat and clean because everything is separate on it. So the first thing we're going to do is just take those little watermelon seeds. They are all the same size, so it doesn't matter what seed goes into what hole. Makes it easy that way. So I am just again sticking them on to that upside down painter's tape or sticky side up, and then I tape that down to a paper plate. It just frees up your hands and makes it easier. There I've colored one, and I do the same thing to all of them. I think there's 7, just coloring the last one in there. And it's the same technique as we used earlier, just removing them from the tape. Then I'm taking my word sweet, and I'm doing like almost a magenta or a deep kind of raspberry colored sweet on there. I wanted a very deep summer pink, not too bright, but more of a dark pink, I guess you would say. And I'm using a marker there. You can use whatever color you'd like. And then for the word summer, I'm using the darker green or kind of a forest green color on that marker. They're from Arteza, and I have them linked below. And you could also use a Sharpie if you wanted on this. I tested the dark green Sharpie earlier and it seemed to work just fine. So those are the sweet and the summer. Now the next part we're going to work on with the markers, and markers are really the easiest way. You can use paint on these and just paint it on with a Q-tip or a small brush. But I like the markers because it keeps it from getting all over, and especially when everything fits together like a puzzle, you don't have any paint drips. But I'm doing a brighter green here. And then I'm going to use a technique I'm going to show you in the box sign to make it look more like a rind, where it's got the dark green and the light green. You can see that on the box sign there. I'm just going to bring it up. So we've got, because watermelon rinds start out dark green, they go light green, and then almost to a white. So I'm going to take the dark green paint pen or paint marker, and I'm just going right along the side, so it just goes slightly over the top, and it's going to give a dark highlighted edge to it. It's really hard to see on camera, but if you try this, you'll see how easy it is. I'm just taking a white marker, and this white marker I got at Hobby Lobby. It's the best white paint marker I can find. Some are kind of watery. The one in this Arteza pack was kind of watery. This is a nice bright white. And then I do that on the inside. And you're going to see when it comes together how much nicer it looks. It kind of blends. So next I'm taking my light green chalk paint. This is from Folk Art, and I think the color is Irish. And I will go ahead and put that in the description box below as well. But you get that paint color at Michael's, Joann's, and Hobby Lobby, that brand. And I am taking a foam brush, and I'm just lightly painting on the outside top edge, and I'm also going to do the sides as well. And then when I'm all done with that, I'm going to take my press and seal, and I am going to wrap my foam brush up, and that's going to keep it moist for future projects, and it keeps it moist for several days. And if it feels rough after you paint it, you can just take a 220 grit sandpaper and sand it down. And we are going to set this aside, but I'm going to do that same effect on that in a little bit that we did on the rind with the dark green and the white. But now we are going to take, and I'm going to show you how I blend paint for this. You can use a red, a dark pink, and a light pink if you have it. I do not. I have red and I have light pink. So I'm going to take my red, I'm going to be using that because we're going to do an ombre effect. And then I'm going to take another little bit of red, and I'm going to add just a bit of pink to it. And I'm just using Q-tips here to kind of scoop a little bit out. You need hardly any more than an eyedropper of paint to do this project. You really don't need much at all. We are going to use this technique on a couple other projects, so you can mix more later. It doesn't matter if it matches, because we're going for an ombre look, so it does not have to be perfect. But I take my lightest color first, and I kind of just go along the shape of the watermelon, and I go about a third to a half of the way up. And if I get any paint in the little seed holes, I take a Q-tip and get it out right away, because I don't want a glump of paint in there and make it hard for the seeds to fit in. Now I am taking just foam dabbers, like makeup wedges for this, and I get them at the Dollar Tree. And I'm doing my deepest red on top. Then I'm taking that middle color and I'm kind of going through the middle. And I'm doing this all while the paint is wet. And then it's going to blend and give you this beautiful ombre. You can see it kind of start to come together. And what I like to do is I do one coat and then I do a second coat just to kind of blend it even more. The second coat always blends it nicely, but I'm going to show you what it looks like so far. And there I'm taking my Q-tips and I'm cleaning out those the little corners where the seed tip is, so I don't have a big glob of paint. But I am going to do a second coat on that, and then I am going to do the white edging around that piece as well. That way it's going to blend into the rind perfectly, and you almost have a perfect ombre from green to the red. So now I'm taking my box sign, and I did a little bit of sanding on that, and then now I am just going around the outside edge with that dark green marker. Then I'm taking my white marker and I'm doing the inside edge. Again, on camera it doesn't show up that great, but we're just mimicking that effect of the watermelon rind. And if I've got any little touch-up areas, I'm just doing that now, and then I wrap up my brush for later. So now it is time to start putting this together, but like I said, I'm going to do a white edge on that pink, so it's going to blend in perfectly with the white edge on that rind. And you'll see how when we have our pieces separate like this in this kit, how nice it looks once it's put together. You don't have any sloppiness or anything like that. So I like to do a dry fit before I start gluing anything down. I'm going to take that rind and kind of see where I want it. I don't want it all the way to the bottom, but almost. So like a little, fingernails width away. You could do it crooked if you want. I'm doing mine straight. I prefer it that way. But either way, you can take a toothpick and put on your super glue. You can also put wood glue on like that. I'm using my fine tip applicator on my Starbond thick glue. It's a super glue, and I just use that because I do so many projects and I make my projects to sell at craft fairs. And so I need a large amount that's easy to just dab on like that, crazy, and not have to worry about seepage. And then once that's down, I'm going to go ahead and put each little seed with a drop of glue in each hole. You don't need much, just the tiniest of drops, and those seeds are going to fit right in. And like I said, they're all the same size, so it doesn't matter which one goes in which hole. Now I'm just checking the positioning of my letters. The sweet, I want at an angle, and I'm only going to put the glue where I see it hitting the wood frame. So basically down the center of the S, at the very little top curve of the W, and then on the cross on the T is the only place I'm putting glue. If I put glue other places, it might drop down onto my project, and I don't want that. I'm going to give it a good press and hold for a few seconds. That one's kind of hard to clamp because of the box sign, but if you give it a good press and hold, it will take rather quickly. Like I said, this is super glue. You have a few seconds to work with it, but not a ton. And then I'm just putting my glue on the back of the word summer and putting it on top of the watermelon, and you can position it wherever you want. You could do it at the bottom of the frame or whatever. I liked it on there. Then you can take our bow, and like I said before, you can attach it to that twine hanger with the little twist tie in the back, and then you have a really nice piece for your tray that stands up without a stand because of the box frame design. This little project is our sweet watermelon banner. This is a fun little tag banner that consists of 5 tags, kind of pendant shape, I like to call them. And then we have the word sweet, S-W-E-E-T, that is going to go on top. You have an assortment of beads and you have some string. And we are going to use that same paint technique that we did on our previous project. So the first thing you're going to do is take your dark green paint marker and just go ahead and put it right over the word sweet. I've done that already since I've shown you how to do that a couple of times. I'm going to quickly just show you that ombre technique again. We're using our same little paint we mixed from before and our little makeup wedges and just blending light pink, dark pink to the red and just blending while it's wet. I do 2 coats, and between the coats I also make sure that I get all the paint out of the little holes, and right after I paint a coat I take a baby wipe and I wipe around the edges so they look crisp and clean and don't have any paint drips. But here's the final banner or pendant tag, and I just go ahead and on each tag I glue the letter on in the middle as best and as straight as I can using my glue in very small amounts. You can just put yours on with a toothpick and then just press it to adhere. And that's all there is to painting that banner. Like I said, we're using the same technique. So I'm just going to go ahead and play with my bead placement a little bit here. I do like where I have the red on the outside, the 2 natural in, and then the E is surrounded by the green. Just kind of like a watermelon in a way with the different colors together. So now I'm taking my string and I do double it up so my string is 2 wide. And then I have got a very small amount of painter's tape and a toothpick, and I'm just adhering that to the end where the 2 pieces of string meet. And then I am stringing that through, and you can see where that toothpick just makes a really nice needle. I'm stringing that through my bead. And I'm leaving several inches, probably 4 to 6 inches at the end. And now I'm taking and I'm just feeding it through one more time, because on the end it's what I call an anchor bead, and you want it nice and tight so it's not going to slide around and your banner's not going to slide back and forth. Then through the banners I go through and down the first hole and up and through the second hole. And then I string on a second bead, and you'll just see I'm repeating the process of a bead, down through a hole, and up through the hole. And I do mine backwards. I start with a T and work myself way back to the S. It just is the technique that works best for when I'm doing one of these banners. And you're going to pull that up, through, and now we're going to get to that final tag. Through the first hole, up through the front on the second hole, and I'm doing that same technique on the end of creating an anchor bead where I go through one time, then I go through a second time, and I kind of just fix it so the string is kind of toward the back, but it doesn't matter if you see it or not. Then I snip the end and I give myself a generous amount to work with, several inches, and I'm just making a really nice tight double knot at the base of that bead. And what that's going to do is anchor everything in place. And then at the end of the string, I'm just making a loop. So I'm tying a knot and pulling that through. And I'll make one more square knot at the end of that just to get it nice and secure. And I'll trim the excess. And then I am going to repeat that process on the other end. So there I'm snipping, and you can see I've got a nice loop, and what I can do there is I can go ahead and use, if I've got a magnetic tier tray, you can use a magnetic hook. Otherwise you can tape these on or however you want, but I like doing those knots to secure everything in place. And there I'm doing the same thing as I did on the other, and I'm trying to make my loops uniform in size. I kind of do double check, but that makes for your banner to hang very nicely. And there is your sweet watermelon banner. It is time for us to make this adorable round watermelon gnome sign. So you're going to have everything in your kit to complete this little watermelon gnome on this little round shiplap sign. And it's going to come complete with the little stand to put him on. Since it is a round sign, it would roll around on your display otherwise. So the technique we do is when we paint this little round portion, you just drag a toothpick through those shiplap lines while the paint's wet to make sure that they stay nice and crisp. And then the rest of him just goes on that shiplap background like a puzzle. And we do that same dragging technique on the watermelon. And then he's got little hands and a little nose. And that's all there is to him. He's pretty easy to do. We're going to use some of our same paint techniques. I do the ombre technique on the hat. I use paint markers on the nose, the little hands, and on the shoes. The nose I have a flesh colored one, and the others I do black. I do green marker on the watermelon, and then white on the beard and the shiplap background. So first we're just gonna we've already got our hands done, those little ovals. We're just going to quick do the shoes with that same black marker technique, just coloring right over the top. You can make these be any color you want. They'd be super cute green. And just set those aside when done. For the nose, I have kind of a flesh colored marker, and I've already done the watermelon in that bright green marker, but we want to do the little lines that are outlined with a dark green marker. I am going to show you this with a Sharpie. I picked the Sharpie because it's got a nice fine tip on it, and it's much easier for coloring in every other piece, basically dark green that is outlined. And there it is with one of them, and then you'll see that I have it all done here in the next frame or two. But that's all you need to do with the markers. So I am showing you here with the sponges. I am doing that same ombre technique. I've done one coat already, and I'm just kind of going over and blending a little better on a second coat. I'm not going very heavy-handed at all, and if I get any excess on, I can use a baby wipe. So there's your completely painted watermelon. We're going to set that aside. And the next thing we're going to do is I want him to look like he has been out in the garden picking watermelons all day. So I am taking a little bit of brown paint in a lid, and then you didn't see what I did there, but I took the brush and I dabbed it off on a paper towel. So I have just a very, what you call a dry brush, and I'm going around the corners. I am doing this with an old stencil brush that I had for years, probably 20 years. And I'm just going over it with that. You could use a foam brush, you could use another kind, or even a rag. You just want to have very little paint on your whatever you're applying it with. So here I'm just showing you, I did 2 coats of that white on the background, and I drug my toothpick through that again to make sure that the shiplap is nice and crisp. And I show that on another project. I'm just doing a little highlight on the nose with a white paint marker. And that's optional, but I just like the look of the little highlight on the nose. So I am going to take and do one last little step on the hat. Since he was out in the garden picking watermelons, I'm assuming his hat got dirty too. So I am dipping the brown paint on my brush again and wiping it off. And I am doing highlights all around that hat and in the little crease areas to make it look like it's a little dirty. He is not a neat and clean gnome. He's going to have a rustic, dirty look to him. So we're going to go ahead, and everything now is painted. So I always like to do a dry fit before I commit to gluing anything down. And I like it to stay in place once I have it. So I am going to take my painter's tape, and I'm going to just tape down the beard since it's in the middle of everything and everything kind of centers around it. So I'm anchoring that down very firmly with a piece of painter's tape. I'm just taking the shoes off for now. And I'm going to start working at the top with the hat. And since everything fits together like a puzzle, it's very easy to just line everything up and put it back together. And that's how I like these kits to be. I want you to be creative and not worrying about things fitting. So I want it to be easy for you to finish. So I just clamp that down to make sure that hat stays nice and secure. You could use tape if you wanted. And now I'm going to just put the beard and slide that back on right under that hat, butting it up. just like the sample one there. Once it's done, I'm going to take my little clamps off, and it's hard to see on here, but each of these shoes go to a specific spot. So the right shoe, or the one that's on your right, it's going to have a little notch in it. It's going to slide right up underneath one of the little wispy ends of the beard. You'll see it when you get it. And the other one has a little notch. You'll see where the heel is, and the top is more smooth, and it goes on that left side. And again, I'm just using my clamps to hold it down while I work on the other pieces. So for the nose, you just want to center it as best you can and get it right at the edge where the hat meets the beard. And then you're going to go ahead and glue the little end pieces, which are the hands, onto the watermelon, and you'll see there's a little bump out for each one, and you'll just want to make sure that those ends line up really good. And then you are going to take and apply just the smallest amount of glue on that back of that watermelon, just a lot of little tiny drops, and put that right between the nose and the bottom of the beard in the center of the gnome. And then he is complete, and you can put him on his little stand and display your watermelon gnome. Our next project is the watermelon produce truck. So this truck is unique in that the item in the bed does interchange out. You can have either the little melon or the Life is Sweet sign. It also comes with a little slotted stand, just like our circle sign did, and you put the slots together, and then it can just rest right on your tier tray. And this set does come with the backer, which we painted white, the frame overlay, which was painted with a green marker. We did that same light green, and we'll do that watermelon rind effect on it. We've got the red truck, the black little tires, and the little seeds, and then there's the bed liner and the bed rail that are brown. So I did do white on that backer, and I used just a foam brush with that. I used our red makeup sponge dauber that we had been using, and I did the truck with that. I did take this little watermelon and I colored that with the light green marker, and there's lines in it, and within the lines I did color that dark green with a Sharpie. Next we use the black, or this brown, on the bed rail and spacer. Then we use black on the little seeds and the tires. And then on this little Life is Sweet sign, I'm going to show you, I just used 3 different shades on that. And I did kind of an ombre effect with markers as opposed to paint. And the reason I did this is because those little Life is Sweet words or letters, they are engraved, and I didn't want to get any paint in them. So if I go over them quickly with a marker, none of the paint gets in there. And if it does, you can just kind of pick it out with a toothpick or a Q-tip. So I started with my lightest pink, went to my medium pink, and then went to my red, and just kind of made it an ombre. And what you do is you just kind of blend over the little color where they meet a little bit, and that kind of gives you that ombre effect. And that nice thing about these markers is they dry pretty quickly, but you do just have to set it aside and let it dry. And while that's happening, we'll go to work on our frame. So it's already painted that light green with the marker, and that's nice because you don't get any inside or outside on the edges. But what we're doing is we edge the outside with the dark marker and the inside of the frame with the white marker. And so that's giving us that watermelon rind effect that we're using, and kind of gives our pieces a cohesive look on our tray. So then the watermelon, like I said, has got those little lines in it, and you can see I went ahead and I did color that with the green Sharpie and use that same technique as we did on the watermelon for the gnome. And now I am just going to start putting everything together. Once you're ready, you're just going to use your very tiny drops of glue. Again, if you've got that Q-tip to put it on, that's the best way. And you're going to go ahead and adhere this and line it up. I like to line it up on a table or a flat surface, make sure everything is lined up and it's not overlapping or hanging over or short on any edge, and then I just apply the clamps and let it dry. For this little Life is Sweet sign, there are 2 little seeds. I painted those black with the black marker, and I'm just putting them in the upper left-hand corner as a little accent. Finally, we're going to get to putting the truck all together. So basically, you want to take your truck and your wheels and get them where you want on the sign before you apply any glue. And then I tape the truck down, and I go ahead and put the little drops of glue on the backs of my tires. And then I go ahead and clamp them down each just to make sure they get good and adhered. After I have that on, I remove the tape and take the truck off, flip it over, and get the glue on the back of the truck. And now it's just going to go right on over those tires that we just glued down. And I have just a small little gap between the truck and where the truck and tires meet. Now we'll do the spacer rail. So that is the little spacer. It's just one thin line, and it just gives us more for our little bed rail to adhere to. And you're only going to put glue on the bottom of the bed rail, and then you are going to press it down and line it up with that spacer. What this does is it gives us just a small gap, so we are able to adhere that bed rail and then slide our little interchangeable watermelon and Life is Sweet sign in and out of. So once that is all done, you can remove your clamps, and you can work with, just make sure that your little watermelon comes in and out okay, as does your little Life is Sweet sign. And that is the watermelon produce truck. We're now going to make the reversible watermelon and popsicle garland. This garland has got a really nice tassel, some really cute colored beads, and it's got a popsicle on one side of the tag and a 1 in a melon sign on the other. And that's a good look at your tassel with the strings attached, your bead assortment, the little faux shiplap tag. It'll say 1 in the melon on one side. It's got this little melon slice, and there's a little engraved or etched out piece right where the melon goes, so you know where to place it. And there's the little popsicle, and I have a little tape on the back of that to hold it all together, and your ribbon. So this is everything that you get. I did already 1 coat on the front and the back of that tag because we're using both sides. I've got my markers. I did the ombre effect on the 1 in the melon and the popsicle. And I used the greens on the other parts of the popsicle and red. So I am going to show you that ombre effect that we did on this one with our little melon slice. Also, we did the dark green on the very outer part of that rind piece, and then there's another rind piece where we did our bright green, just like our other pieces. Then I took kind of this really bright pink and started in on the little slice. The little seeds are engraved, so if you use markers, they usually don't get down in that engraved part, and the seeds will stay shown up. But if you do get some, just take a toothpick in there and pick it out, or sometimes you just place your finger over it, it lifts the paint right out. But I'm just continuing to get that ombre effect by blending in the wet marker, and then I do the white at the very bottom to get that effect that we've been doing throughout. So I'm going to set that aside and let that dry. It does dry very quickly, but it's a little too wet to handle right now. And then, like I said before, I went ahead and did that same 3-color ombre effect on the 1 in the melon and on the popsicle. I did the inner parts red. There's 2 little strips that go at the bottom. The skinny little one is light green. The fatter one is dark green. And then there's the little popsicle holder at the very bottom there. And that is what we're going to work with after we get the 1 in the melon and the little melon piece in and adhered. So I'm going to show you how that works with the faux shiplap real quick. we did this and I forgot to film it on the Gnome, but you put your second coat of white on, then you just take your toothpick and drag it, and then those lines just come right back to life. I always like to start in the middle and drag my paint out toward the back, or the sides, because then it gets less spillage of the paint and you get it moved around really well. And then if you get paint on the sides, I just take a baby wipe and wipe it off. That's what it looks like once we've let it dry, and there's that very little wedge piece that is outlined for you so you know where to put your one in the melon. I like to do a dry fit. And so once I know where that one in a melon is going to go, I get my glue on the back in my small dots like we've been doing all along, and I adhere that. And then I'm going to take my wedge and I'm going to put the first piece on, aligning that very carefully up on the little outline portion that is there for it. Then I'm taking my glue and I'm just doing a very small amount, kind of right along that top edge and also on the white. And then it's going to fit in there nice and snug. They're little, so I want to make sure they're on there nice and secure. So the one in the melon side is done. Once that is done, we're going to go ahead and get to work on that popsicle. Again, I like to do a dry fit. So what I do here is off the tag, I'm going to go ahead and line all up my pieces of the popsicle, and I'm just putting a small piece of painter tape on there to hold them all together. Then I'm going to take another piece and put it over the top and flip it over. That way I have a way of handling it. I'm going to put a small bit of glue between each piece just to make sure they adhere together nicely. And then I'm going to put my glue all over the back. And then, so I don't have to touch it and get glue on my fingers, I'm taking that tape and just flipping it back over and using that to kind of hover over where I want it to be until it's ready to be adhered. And then I put my clamps on it and I remove my tape. Then we just have to put in those little red slats. So I am going to take a little bit of glue and just put it right on the inside there and put each one of those little red inserts in, and your popsicle side is done. Now your tag is finished, so we are going to get working on the bead portion. Now this is how I have the beads laid out. If you want to pause it right here, that will help, but you've got your two big fat anchor beads that are bigger than anything else. They're kind of a pinkish color. Then you've got 6 watermelon beads. Then I do a pink, red, green, natural, pink, red, green, and white. And these are the rows we are going to work with, and we're going to start with the bottom row, or the far right row first. And since the holes in those little watermelons are so tiny, I'm taking my twist tie and I'm making kind of a threader out of it. So I am ripping off the sides. I just did a little slat with my scissors, and so I basically just have the wire there, the coated wire, and nothing extra. And the string is already attached to the tassel, so we are going to be working with the other end, and I'm just getting it, and I'm folding my wire in half and putting the string at the bottom, and then I'm just going to start stringing my beads. So I do that first big anchor bead, and then I'm going to start working backwards. So I'm doing that white bead, a green bead, a natural bead, a green bead, and then finally the little tiny watermelon bead. And I'm just going to repeat that process until I have all those beads done, and then we will end up with that other big pink anchor bead at the end. And you can refer to your written instructions too. I should have a picture of the bead layout there as well. But that's what it looks like with one course of beads. And then we go on and we do 2 courses, and the next course, and the next one is the greens again, and then we go with the final red course and the final pink course after that. And then we are going to, like I said, end up with our large pink anchor bead at the end. So now we just need to adhere our tag. So what we're going to do here is string it through the back to the front and pull it as tight as we can, and we're going to get just rid of a little bit of that excess because there was so much extra. And then I'm getting my little threader ready again, and I'm pulling it around the back Then I'm going to go through that hole again to just have 2 rounds of the string in that hole. And I'm pulling it down as close to the tag as possible. Then I am going to take my threader and I am going to go back up through our pink anchor bead, that bright pink bead there, and I'm going to pull it tight. And then I am going to take my string and cut off the excess, but have several inches to work with, and tie a knot in front of the string in the middle and behind it, and then cut that off after that. And then I can hide it and slide that bead up. And then I'm going to take my ribbon and I'm going to do a bird's beak at the end of each ribbon, or at each end of the ribbon, excuse me. Then I'm just going to tie one simple knot around between the tag top and that final big anchor bead. And I'm just going to shape my ribbon, and what this does is it secures your beads, gets rid of any gap, and hides the excess string. That is it for our projects. All 6 are done. Thank you so much for joining me. Let's just take a quick look at everything all together. I wanted to remind you that if you want to order this kit or any of our DIY kits, the link to the kit page is down below. If you want to join our kit club, that is down below as well. I hope you enjoyed this, and if you have any questions regarding this, don't hesitate to reach out via email. That is in the description box as well. In the meantime, I'm going to let the music play. We're going to enjoy looking at this kit, and join me back here in about a month where we will have another kit for you. And don't forget to look for the loon.